What's up, guys? Tommy Carrigan with Tommy Untamed. We've got an incredible guest today. Show starts right now. Dr. Kevin Barrett and myself, we are both for future reference for future historians. Technically, there's been no big moment yet in Israel Iran. It is disheartening to see Trump come out last night and call for unconditional surrender from Iran, and then also I think tweet last night, the U.S. now has complete control of Iranian airspace, and that the Sheikh or Khomeini, or excuse my ignorance, is an easy target. And it is quite the 180 from seemingly even just a couple weeks ago, saying that Israel better not screw this up, but it will. I don't think you can really shift the Overton window back, as I was just telling you. I mean, most of the hardcore military guys I know, they are they are they're unmistakable. They are no different than like a classical 2003 liberal saying like, "Do not do this," which is crazy because they're not just guys who happen to be Republican and now they're leaning left. These are guys with like multiple tours in special forces are saying like, "Do not do this. Do not send your sons to die in this. Do not do any of this." Which, if there's any positivity in what's happening, I would say it's that. But that's a very low bar right now. So, Dr. Barrett, I'm going to hand it over to you because I know we have a short amount of time, and I always appreciate your insights onto this region and this topic.
Yeah, well, I think you summed that up pretty well, Tommy. Yeah, there's a huge disconnect here between the complete craziness, unstrategic nature, criminality, utter lunacy of this war, which makes the attack on Iraq and Afghanistan after 9/11, seem those wars actually would seem somewhat, reasonable compared to this. This is really a crazy, stupid war, beyond belief. Yeah, and with no popular support, or very little popular support. The Trump's base is about 50-50 split, with the three-digit IQ people being strongly against it, and the two-digit IQ people tending to be for it. And the Democrats, of course, and the anti-Trump folks, they all hate Trump. They're not going to be led into any war by this guy. So he has, like, at best maybe 25% approval going into this thing.
Yeah.
And it's going to get really ugly, one way or another. It's guaranteed to get really ugly because Iran can kill as many hundreds or thousands of Americans as it wants to. It's got missiles that can't be stopped that can hit every base and ship in the region, which is a lot of them. So essentially, Iran can calibrate its response by killing the appropriate number of Americans, which will, of course, drive Trump berserk. And, so how, either it gets ugly, I guess, if you have the madman theory, if Trump is really going to be a madman, then, he starts dropping nukes on Iran and totally, destroys the American empire by making it an international pariah. Uh, and otherwise, he loses the war. So it's set up, for total disaster. I guess what they're doing is they're taking a crapshoot that, maybe the Iranian leadership will capitulate, but it won't. I mean, that's a really long shot. And the only way that really could conceivably happen would be if you had the other long shot they're taking, is to try to get some kind of regime change. And there would have to be some kind of radical leadership change in Iran to even have any kind of, okay, we'll go back and sign something with you, Trump, and it'll be close to what you want, which is no enrichment. But the problem is that nobody in Iran is willing to give up enrichment. None, zero. It's 100%. Everybody, the people who hate, even the traitors who hate the Islamic Republic. And unfortunately, that's probably maybe, one in five or six Iranians doesn't like the Islamic Republic would rather have a different. It's like being a communist in America, where
Sure.
you'd want to shred the Constitution and establish a Bolshevik dictatorship in America. So there are a few people like that in America, and there may be a slightly higher percentage of people like that in Iran who feel that way about their system, but it's still a small minority. And the really super committed people in Iran are by and large the supporters of the Islamic Republic, the strong supporters of it, the people who march by the millions every year shouting death to Israel, death to America. And there are, that's probably a good 25-30% of the population, easy. So those are super committed people. But everybody on that spectrum, there are three guys in Iran that actually like the Shah and would like to put his son in power. Maybe four, right? Out of 95 million people or whatever. And even those people, they don't want to give up enrichment. Nobody does. So giving up enrichment is just a total non-starter for any leadership there. So how are you, and the mentality in Iran is like, hey, the best thing that can happen is to get martyred. I mean, it's like, what's the greatest thing that could possibly happen to you? If you're American, you go on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and you win the Bonanza jackpot and you win the lottery and you end up with $1 billion and you live in Trump Tower or whatever.
Sure.
Uh, and in Iran, the equivalent to that is being martyred in a just cause. That's the best thing that could possibly happen to you, the thing you would most look forward to in your life. Now, not every Iranian is fully committed to that. I mean, there's a spectrum but that's basically the whole mentality of the culture. And when Iran is being attacked, it becomes the mentality of most of the people there. Yeah, and that's what Saddam Hussein learned to his chagrin in the 1980s. He thought this will be a cakewalk. He said, I got the support of every major country on earth, not only the West, the Americans, the Europeans, but the Russians too. Everybody wants me to teach those stupid Iranian mullahs a lesson. And so Saddam Hussein started off with massive military superiority, massive financial backing. He had chemical weapons that Donald Rumsfeld gave him, all that stuff. And he marched into Iran. And because that, they at first it looked really bad for Iran, much worse than this current war does, much worse. But the Iranians, they're gluttons for punishment. And so they just fought and fought and fought. Volunteers, including teenagers, volunteered to go clear the minefields just by walking through them until they exploded. You know,
Jeez.
Tens of thousands of people volunteered for that or more. And everybody that had a family member that volunteered for that, like, is happy because they're assured the highest level in paradise. And the whole country, pretty much, with a handful of exceptions of like the, people who became the MLK terrorists who were like fans of Saddam, that's like a tiny, tiny fraction of the people there. So it united the country, and they were willing to take huge punishment, and they kept fighting, 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 and gradually they got better at it, better and better and better. And by the end, they were ready to march to Baghdad. And the only reason they didn't march to Baghdad was like, the Americans shot down a civilian airliner and said, we'll nuke Tehran. And so the leader was faced with a choice, and he said, oh, we're okay. We got back everything and then some that Saddam stole. We don't like it. We'd rather march to Baghdad and liberate them, but we'll call it off. And so, like, they way, way, way overperformed, and that's because of their fighting spirit, their willingness to take punishment, any amount of punishment. Huge numbers of Iranian civilians got just rained down on with chemical weapons, Rumsfeld's chemical weapons. And the more that happened, the more dedicated they were to fighting. And that'll happen again if it comes to that. So this is what we're up against here with Iran. This is what the shayateen, the demons in human form, people like Trump and Netanyahu are up against. And Trump is too stupid to realize, uninformed. He doesn't understand. He doesn't know anything about Iranians. And so, I think the Zionists imagine that they can get Trump to basically nuke Tehran. That's their preferred outcome. If that happens, that's the end of America. But,
Potentially
you
the
know,
world.
yeah, and maybe the world too. I mean, you don't really know how Russia, China, and so on are going to react. But well, we know that they're going to make sure that that's it. If that would destroy America's reputation,
That would
with
be
this
no, that
madman
would be the
president,
end.
madman president that everybody hates. Half the Americans hate him. Now half of his base hates him too, and then everybody else in the world hates him. And so, madman president nukes Tehran when everybody hates him. That's pretty much it for the empire. So you can't really see how the Americans could possibly come out of this with any. The best they could really hope for would be to sort of retreat with their tail between their legs fairly quickly, like within the first few months, because it's gonna be more and more and more of a quagmire, is my prediction.
He, I guess the only silver lining I see is Trump has a big enough ego, and the ego could very well be the downfall. There is a chance that, and I don't even mean this as a compliment, although I do openly, I've said I like Trump before, but I look at it, the best case is he could say, he could, if he really wanted to, he could twist this to America first. Say we're not doing this shit for you. He could wrap it up with Ukraine end this and go, we're not doing this. You know, you could just make a funny gaffe and be like, we're here to stop the Mexicans and we're bringing the military back to the border or some shit. Like that is the only positive outcome I see is it would be a retreat, but it would be saying I'm doing this to take care of the United States. Like it's start listing the debt every day. You could very well do it. I don't know if that's gonna happen. I do want to like look. I always quote him, but my favorite comedian Tim Dillon. I was listening to him years ago, and I remember him saying he was like being in the Middle East is like being in like a shitty neighborhood, and there's like a no knock warrant, and the cops break down your buddy's door, and they shoot him in the face, and he didn't have a gun, and you might not have wanted a gun before, you might have been on the fence, but you realize the cops never kick down the doors of your buddies that have shotguns, because they know it might be coming back. Man, are you not making the case for a nuclear weapons program by doing this? Are you not making you go, it's like the meme, why are we going to bomb Iran? Because they have nukes. How come we haven't bombed North Korea? What are you, crazy? They have nukes. Hey, man, just simple, and I know it's so hypercharged with Israel, Trump, Iran. Just for everyone listening, just remove all of that and just look at it as a thought exercise between country Kevin and country Tommy, and I kick down your door because I know you don't have a gun. If you're a smart individual with self-preservation, eventually you're gonna go, I haven't really even wanted a gun, but I'm getting a shotgun with slugs in it now because Tom is kicking down doors. Why wouldn't you do that? Like, why wouldn't you do that? If you're being attacked that way, and you notice the countries that don't get bullied are the ones that have the ability to let off a couple kilotons, man, that's what I would do. And but there's it's to look at that. It's no, they can't have them. It's like why not? Like even just as a thought experiment, why not? Why did we never nuke the USSR? Well, because they were going to hit us back. And you have to walk that out rationally and go, well, then why wouldn't I want them? If nothing was happening, you could say, well, you're chasing nuclear weapons because you want to do something bad. Okay, kind of a bullshit argument, but maybe you could say like, hey, look, Norway's not trying to get them. But if we started kicking down doors in Norway and then Sweden and then Switzerland and then Ireland at a certain, and then we didn't touch the UK, you go, why didn't you touch the UK? And they go, well, they have those nuclear tipped SLBMs, the submarine launched ballistic missiles. I would go, well, if I'm a betting man, I would imagine that America's probably not going to hit France and Germany either because they have nuclear weapons, correct? Oh, but we are going to hit, Madagascar and the Vatican. Why? Well, they don't have nuclear weapons. I mean, God, at a certain point you go, I don't even want them, but now for my own self-preservation, I do want them. And then, so when I walk that out, I go, it's stupid to attack them. And then I realize that I'm applying logic and rationale and self-preservation to people who are not stupid. They are psychopaths, and they don't care. They understand everything I'm saying, and they're going, yeah, I don't give a shit. I'm trying to argue morality to a kidnapper. I'm like, that's somebody's kid. They're like, yeah, I don't care. I'm like, oh, that's a demon. That you need to die. Like, so I don't know. That's just kind of my 2 cents on it. Is like, why wouldn't you get nukes if you saw this happen to your next door neighbor? Like, why wouldn't you? I don't know where I was going with that. I don't. There's
Well,
not really a question in there.
The Iranian leadership has banned weapons of mass destruction as a matter of policy from the very beginning. The first fatwa was issued by Khomeini, the leader of the original 1979 Islamic Revolution. And the thinking then, and this was, of course, at a time when publicly most, I mean, the nukes were tended to all be very, very large. So you couldn't set one off without killing huge numbers of civilians. They were basically, city busters.
Yeah.
And so that's considered un-Islamic because in Islam there's very strict rules of just warfare. You're not allowed to harm civilians. You're not allowed to harm non-combatants. You're not allowed to harm animals. You're not allowed to harm the ecosystem, the farms and the crops. You can't burn crops or any of that stuff. So religiously, there's been that edict in Iran all this time. And more of the ordinary Iranian people want to rethink it because, they're not religious scholars, and they see that their religious scholars are saying that nuclear weapons are haram. They're so they could never be used, and so if they can't be used, then you can't build them. But today, I think the Iranians might rethink that, partly because of popular pressure. The people of Iran are sick of being abused, and like you said, they won't be abused as much if they can show that they have some nukes. And then secondly, of course, there are technical reasons where they could modify their fatwa because today modern nuclear weapons can be dialed down to make them, give smaller bursts, so they could be used tactically,
Hmm.
not just so-called strategically by blowing up cities. And and then finally, there is a doctrine of urgency, or if you have no choice, you're allowed to save yourself by whatever means. Like in Islam, you're not supposed to eat pork, but if some situation arose where the only thing that you could eat would be pork, or you would starve to death, then you certainly should eat pork. And the same could be true for all sorts of other things. So that doctrine of necessity could also be used to change the ruling on that issue in Iran. And they might very well do it. I mean, maybe they've already done it. I don't know. It might be the sort of thing where they would say, look, if we do this publicly, then we're going to get pounded and a lot of people will die. But if we do it privately and covertly in such a way that at X date, we can set something off in the desert and show that we have the nuclear bomb, then we could stop further attacks. So that's always possible. I tend to think they don't have it though, because I think we would have seen a demonstration if they did. And as for how is Iran going to get one, I think that if the Americans join this, and if the Americans are dumb enough to use those giant bunker busters to try to damage Firdaus, this big nuclear site, all of these attacks on Iran's nuclear sites, actually, their nuclear sites are spread out all over the place, and some of them are covert. I mean, the big enrichment ones have been public because they have to let the inspectors go and inspect. That's the whole problem of, they've been cooperating with the IAEA, which is full of spies for America and Israel. So those spies know where all this stuff is, and then they can pass that on to their militaries. So it's true that, with these bunker busters, Trump could really damage a lot of that enrichment capacity. But Iran has the know-how, they have the material spread around, and they can reconstitute and start enriching in lots of other different places secretly. And they can also see about getting a nuke covertly from Pakistan, North Korea, possibly facilitated by China or Russia. But maybe not. Maybe just straight for I was at a Palestine conference in Tehran in 2019, I think it was, where you would have sworn that the North Korean delegate had a nuke in his briefcase for sale. He was like trying to sell the Iranians on one. So that's what he sounded like.
It,
So uh, so anyway, yeah, I think that if Trump is crazy enough to do this, then what we'll get will be the Iranians will fire back at some American targets, kill some Americans, whatever level is appropriate. And if Trump ups the ante after that, then more Americans die. They hit more bases, and you end up in this tit for tat thing, sort of like we're seeing with Iran and Israel. And you may have noticed that Iran now they don't have to fire as many shots at Israel each day to get the same results. Like when it started, they had to fire over 100 missiles, which were mostly the old slow ones from 20, 30 years ago. And then they would shoot a hypersonic one that would get through and hit the target. And then the next day, they only had to fire 80 to get hit the same, however, three targets or whatever they were doing. And now they can get those three targets with just by sending, they're sending what, 75, 70 or 50, whatever. And all of the new ones are getting through. I mean, Israel cannot stop any of the new hypersonic missiles. Neither can the U.S. if those missiles are used against ships or military bases. The Iranians already demonstrated they can hit American military bases when Trump murdered Soleimani several years ago. So uh, how it all would play out would be a long, tit for tat quagmire if Trump wanted to actually regime change Iran and stop Iran from firing at us. He would have to send a huge army in to to conquer and occupy Iran. And that would require well over 1 million soldiers. We could, a couple 100,000 were not enough to do Iraq. It should have been at least three times that. They at least 500,000 or more. And Iraq is a fraction of the size of Iran, and its people are a fraction of the problem that the Iranian people are. So you'd be talking about well over 1 million Americans having to go in there to actually win, by meaning, putting an end to having them shooting at us. So otherwise, they'll just keep cobbling stuff together and shooting at us and getting better and better at it over months and years, however long it takes. And Iran will keep getting help from, probably China and Russia will help Iran covertly. They're not going to come out, they're going to join Iran's case big time and openly, but they'll see to it that Iran can keep on, living to fight another day, because it's in their interest to have the U.S. empire go down this way. The longer it takes, the more the U.S. empire bleeds, the better Russia and China are off, because that means we won't be fighting them on their home territory. So Trump is going to lose the war in Ukraine because of the shift. He's not going to be able to deal with China in the South China Sea. He probably won't even be able to hold any American alliances together against China. And he'll basically throw away, American lives, treasure, and ultimately the empire in this bogged down effort to beat Iran. And again, where's he? He's really going to get send 1 million guys?
No.
Good luck with that. Like you said, I don't think the military is up for that. So it's really it looks like a bad move, to say the least. I mean, in every respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. 72 servings per pail. 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it, not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with a solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels. Go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
There's no value in lessons learned if you don't implement them. Like so I was born in 1990. I don't remember Desert Storm. I barely remember 9/11. I just remember that day. But I was in 5th grade. Like it's okay. You look at that, you go, I was too young, and okay, even back then, it's like, yeah, my parents were working, and they didn't, they weren't internet. They're still not internet savvy, but they weren't internet savvy. Like I have some, I don't know, understanding of getting duped into a war. I go, yeah, you grew up, your parents are the greatest generation. Like, okay, you go in Afghanistan, Iraq. It's people that say let's not go to Iraq. They're whacked over the head as pacifists. Okay, well, you do that for 20 years. You spend trillions of dollars. You lose 7,500 servicemen. You kill 1 to 5 million civilians. You get nothing from it. You're done for the worse. You look back at it, and it is, of course, not even the slightest bit of a incendiary opinion to say, the Iraq war was fucked, or that was all, you go, yeah, of course, it's in hindsight, but it's, hindsight 2020. The hindsight 2020 means nothing if we don't immediately turn around and apply to this. If this is happening and it's not 2025, it's 2085, and somebody's running their mouth on a podcast about this is just like the Iraq war, you'd be like, dude, that was 80 years ago. Like that. Sure, it's not. We got out in August 2021. It has not been 4 years. You can't look at that and go that it was so clearly fabricated. You can't look at it and paint Bush and Cheney correctly and Rumsfeld, and you can't look at that and correctly, by the way, paint them as demons from hell. You can't look at that and go, that was all fabricated, all just for a couple bucks, and then immediately look at this and say, like, I stand with Israel. And it's, you cannot do that. And this is more of, I'm sure this is more of like an eye-rolling point, but, like, I'm 34, and through meditation and prayer and psychedelics and, just daily life experience, it does, eventually dawn on you that over there is not over there. It's over here. They're just like you. Mom, dad, they got holidays. They got funny inside jokes. They have their first crush. That they're all their little, internal inside lives and hobbies and their favorite pair of shoes, and that's over there. And it's not just some. That's the it's not some World War I, like we got to defeat the Hun. Like it's not where you can pull it off because no one has any free flow of information. The average peasant doesn't. They're just like you and me, man. And you can see it on Instagram and TikTok when you see missiles coming in. You go, huh, the resolution of that phone is just like my phone. Huh, I wonder what it'd be like if I looked out in Portland, Maine and saw ballistic missiles coming in. Like, those are people. And you can't beat the drum for this. You can't. And it's not un-American. It doesn't make you un-American. It doesn't make you a jihadist. It doesn't make you anti-Semitic. To just look at this and go, at the very least, we shouldn't be involved. You can go one step further and say what should happen over there, but the very least is you can be at a bar and people are fighting. If you really are a bleeding heart, you can maybe try to stop the fight. But the most important thing you can do is going, hey, I'm leaving. You guys are idiots. You can't get involved, and it will be the end of the empire if you do this. It will be. Man, like you can. There's two paths right now. You can put your foot in the sand and go, I'm not fucking supporting Israel. I'm not doing this shit. We're rebuilding America. And man, that might actually be the only way to have any sort of semblance of harmony in the United States. And I say that very sarcastically, but you could be a momentous figure in not just the ways of I'm the alpha male, I'm going to nuke everyone. I think, actually, I think Trump said it to Kim Jong-un. They didn't even say it takes a real powerful man to want peace. He can do that. And he's obviously not listening, which is a shocker to both you and I. I always think that Trump is tuning into us, but it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you un-American or un-Iranian or un-Israeli to look at this and go, there's nothing is going to come out of this that's remotely good. But I imagine history is littered with the rants of things like I just said, and then I'm shot for being a traitor. Going, all right, well that pussy's dead. Any more questions? And like, yeah, okay, yeah, I get that, but man, I can't, I can't in good faith quiet my mind and try to have some sort of relationship with God, and then in good conscience not say anything about this. Not that it matters. Not that I have the biggest show in the world. I don't. But it's man, like nothing is coming from this good. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, I wish we're listening,
Yeah.
but I I think it's likely. I don't know for sure, but my sense is that probably if Trump were to do what you or I suggest and break with Netanyahu, break with Israel, and just back off and get out, that the Israelis would say, okay, let's release the Trump Epstein tapes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's release the July 13th
Mm-hmm.
fake shooting in Butler tapes. You know, as soon as I saw that fake shooting in Butler, I said, yeah, they've groomed Trump. He's going to win. They're going to put him in there to attack Iran. That's what this is all about. Yeah, that was just such a bad fake. I mean, it was like bad professional wrestling level. He supposedly gets shot in the ear, but there's no damage whatsoever to his ear. Miraculously, there's exactly the right amount of blood for him to paint himself with war paint in a scripted move, stand up in front of the flag and shake his fist at a time when no Secret Service would have ever allowed anybody to do that. It was just so bad. It's like so shamefully bad. And so, like their idea of the intelligence of the American people to do something like that. When Trump's really unpopular, half the people hate him. And most of the high people with higher education hate him. And yet they've dumbed down the American population to such an extent that even people who test pretty well on IQ tests and with educational degrees don't notice that this story of this shooting is completely insane, and that it's obvious that Trump had rehearsed it. You know, uh, so as soon as I saw it, I could see all of this coming, and so that's see. Otherwise, it would be really hard to explain why Trump would be doing what he does. But given that likelihood and the fact that Trump has been a tool of the kosher Nostra, that is Jewish organized crime, which works with the state of Israel throughout his entire life, that he was a made man by Roy Cohn, the kosher Nostra lieutenant who was involved in controlling New York through uh, Meyer Lansky and J. Edgar Hoover. And that's the guy that created Donald Trump and made him, what he is. So, I think the people who voted for Trump need to wrap their minds around the fact that they got shafted. Just like the people on the other side who voted for Obama in
Sure.
2008, thinking that Obama was a change candidate, that he was different from Bush and Cheney and so on. They got shafted. Obama is owned by the Jewish mob, and Penny Pritzker created him in Chicago, and he admitted it. He had to appoint Rahm
Citigroup
Emanuel
chose his
as his chief of
administration.
staff. Yeah, exactly. And likewise with Trump. So Obama was a fake left-wing anti-war candidate, and Trump is a fake right-wing patriot candidate. And they're both manufactured, by the same company, the Jewish supremacist oligarchs who control the U.S. and are loyal to Israel. So I think that it's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
It doesn't feel good to be duped. The first president I voted for was Obama. I was 18. It's a shitty feeling to be duped, especially when you think you did the right thing. It's not a fun feeling. It's your ego's bruised. And but I was saying the people that control that are pulling the strings, they're not stupid. They're evil, but they're not stupid. They know the psychology. They know the propaganda. They know your ego gets involved. They know that you don't want to admit you were wrong. But if we don't, we're gonna have a much worse bill to pay. And but before you were cut off, you were saying they're both orchestrated by the Cosa Nostra, and then you cut off. I don't know if you can or want to continue that thought before the Mossad tried to pull the plug on us.
Yeah. Well, I, it's hard to tell how much maneuvering room somebody like Trump actually has, or Obama for that matter.
Sure.
Obama had enough maneuvering room that he was able to basically call Netanyahu all kinds of obscene names, and more importantly, push through the JCPOA nuclear agreement with Iran. Almost over the dead body of Netanyahu. So there's a policy difference between Netanyahu and some of the other, Jewish Zionist oligarchs, and there still is. And so just, these guys, they don't have very much wiggle room, but maybe Trump has enough that he could somehow get out of this, disastrous scenario. Uh, I guess we have to hope and pray that that's the case.
And I think we will pray for it. And, Trump might say, no, I don't have the wiggle room because they have this blackmail and that blackmail. But ultimately, no, you have all the wiggle room you want. They can release it. And if it maybe they do. But you have the free will to still maneuver out of this. And you might be disgraced and arrested. And if you're on Epstein's Island, you should, as with everyone there, be in prison for pedophilia. But man, this might be your chance at redemption. Come out and go, we're not going to take place in this. They're either going to kill me or release Epstein tapes. Like, so help me God. You can do that. And I understand that's a huge burden. That's a big cross. And it's very easy for me to point at you and go, you should do that. But you have the wiggle room to do whatever you want. Um, but Dr. Barrett, I said I'd let you go at 30 minutes. My next guest just entered, so we got to wrap this up. For everybody listening, that's like you cut him off. No. We talked beforehand. We can only do 30 minutes. He has to run. But Dr. Barrett, I appreciate you doing this on short notice. I always appreciate your insight, and I think you agree that I think everyone should pray that to put your ego aside and to just hope that God can guide this and to a better world that I think most people do want that aren't whipped up into emotion. So, everybody listening, please go into the description. You go check out all the links for Dr. Barrett, all your shows, writings, all that good stuff. I will email you this link when it is up tomorrow. And I appreciate your time, man.
Okay, thanks, Tony. I always enjoy talking with you.
Yes, sir. You as well. Thank you so much for your time. Guys, thank you for watching.